What's up YouTube, Saf here on Super Saf TV, and in this video I'm going to be comparing the specs of the Nikon D7100 to the Nikon D5200. Now the D7100 has just been announced and it's aiming at the intermediate photographer, and it sits just before the Nikon's full frame lineup. Now I've had a full review of the Nikon D5200 and you can see a hands-on video just here, and a lot of people on the video were asking about how the D5200 compares to the D7000, which was obviously a very popular camera, but I knew that Nikon were going to be releasing something soon because the D7000 is about 2.5 years old, so I thought I'd wait to give more of a fair spec comparison because the D7000 was pretty old. So anyway, in my usual style, I'm going to be going through the specs of these two cameras to give you guys a better idea of the differences between these two. So let's get straight to the megapixels and the sensor size. Now both of these are DX crop sensors, they're not full frame, they're going to have a 1.5 times crop. The D5200 and the D7100 both have a 24.1 megapixel CMOS sensor with X-Speed 3. Now although they're the same size, the D7100 does have an image sensor unit without an optical low pass filter. Now I've not seen this in action much myself personally, but I believe the D800E also had this feature. Now what that does is it helps eliminating aliasing distortions, and it gives you more sharper, more crisp images from what they're saying. So this will be really interesting to see some hands-on examples of images. Now moving on to the autofocus, you've got 39-point autofocus system with 9 cross-tab points on the D5200. On the D7100 you've got a 51-point AF system with 15 cross-type sensors. Now this is very impressive on the D7100 because even the full-frame D600 only has 39 AF points, so this is looking really good. Now in terms of ISO performance, both are pretty similar here, 100 to 6400, extendable to 25,600. Now obviously with ISO you need to sort of see the performance of the camera to see how it displays in low light. I've done a hands-on test with the D5200 as well. That's again in the same review, so you can check that out. Continuous shooting, the D5200 5 frames a second, the D7100 6 frames a second, although you can go up to 7 frames a second in 1.3 times DX crop. Now let me explain what the 1.3 times DX crop is. On the camera you can crop down slightly to the DX mode. I mean, on some of the Nikon FX cameras such as the D800, D600, you can go down to DX, but now this lets you go 1.3 times further. Now this is going to be really useful for video, and it's also going to let you capture lower res images. I mean, they're not going to be as high res because you're going to be cropping into the sensor. So obviously when you're doing telephoto, things like that, and you want to really get in even closer than what your lens allows, this is going to get you in slightly closer, although at lower resolution. In video it's going to let you do the full 1080p. Looking at the max shutter speed, the D5200 1/4000th of a second, the D7100 1/8000th of a second. So obviously this is more the D7100 again more towards the pro sort of level in terms of shutter speed, and also flash sync speed as well. 1/200th of a second is the D5200, the D7100 is 1/250th of a second. In terms of the viewfinder again as well, the D5200 only has 95% coverage viewfinder, the D7100 has a 100% viewfinder coverage. So what you see is what you're going to get. So now this is again a pro feature that's in this camera, so it's really going for that intermediate market. In terms of a built-in focus motor, now the D5200 does not have a built-in focus motor, the D7100 does have a built-in focus motor. Now just to give you a brief idea of what a built-in focus motor is, not all lenses, some of the older lenses don't have a focus motor on the lens itself, so having that on the camera allows you some more options with some of the older lenses. Now it's not a huge deal because most of the new lenses from Nikon have this built in anyway, so you don't have to worry too much about it. But obviously if you do have some old lenses, you're going to be going for some vintage lenses, then the D7100 with the AF built-in motor is going to really be useful there. Looking at the screen, another very interesting point here, the D5200 has the 3-inch 921K dot vari-angle screen, the D7100 has a 3.2-inch 12 to 9K dot vari-angle screen. Now the obviously big advantage on the D5200 is that it's actually a flip out screen, so it's going to let you tilt and swivel out to the side. Very useful for awkward angles, etc., especially for video. It's really useful. So now I think that's the biggest advantage that the Nikon D5200 has over the Nikon D7100. That flip out screen, very useful. In terms of card slots and storage, the D5200 only has a single SD card slot. The D7100 has the dual SD card slot, so now you can use that for overflow and backup. Again, very useful. Another pro feature in this camera. Okay, looking at video, the D5200 obviously very good video quality on here. Again, you can see some examples on the review, but you've got 1080p at 24, 25 and 30 frames a second, as well as 1080i at 50 and 60 frames a second. So that's the same on both cameras. You're going to be able to go up to 1080i at 60 frames a second and at 1080p up to 30 frames a second. However, the interesting point here is that the D7100 is going to allow you to have a clean uncompressed feed coming out the HDMI. So this is really useful if you're going to be thinking of doing pro video, because you're going to get some exceptional quality video coming straight out the camera into an external device such as an Atomos Ninja or something, which records to solid state. Now obviously this is a feature that's mainly on the pro cameras such as the D600 and the D800, but they've got it now on the D7100, which is very good, and it's one of the cheapest DSLRs to offer this. Mic in and headphone out. The D5200 does have a mic in but does not have a headphone out. The D7100 does have a mic in as well as a headphone out. Obviously headphone out, really useful to sort of monitor what you're hearing and to really, if you are going to be recording on board. Personally, I record using an external device altogether, but obviously if you're going to be using either the stereo mics on both have a stereo mic on board, or an external mic going directly into the camera, you're going to be able to hear what's being recorded. Again, very useful. Looking at the size and weight, obviously the D5200 very compact, 505 grams, whereas the D7100 is 675 grams. So obviously the D5100 significantly lighter than the D7100. It's also smaller in terms of height and width. The D7100 is slightly thinner, just by 2 millimeters. So that's obviously another thing to consider. If you don't want to be carrying around a bulky camera, then the D5200 very compact, and for the features that it offers, very compact for that size as well. In terms of wireless transfer, both are compatible with the wireless mobile adapter, the WU1A. Very useful, this little device. I mean, it's only about 50 or 60 pounds here in the UK. You can plug it in and you can transfer your images wirelessly to a mobile device. Really useful. And you've got some remote controls as well over the cameras via the mobile device using this little adapter. So again, both have this option. Really quite useful there. In terms of price, now this is obviously interesting. The D5200 currently you're looking at around £600 or $800. The D7100 has been advertised at roughly £1,100 or $1,200. Now obviously that is quite a high price, considering that the D600, which is a full frame DSLR, is only around between £1,400 to £1,500. So just for a little bit more, you're going to be getting a full frame. So that's obviously questionable. Having said that, prices do come down. Obviously, as soon as a new camera is released, initially the price is slightly high. There's the same situation with the D5200, and then it'll slowly start dropping after a few months. So if you are considering to go for this, I would possibly wait for a few months for the price to sort of become a bit more reasonable. And it's on sale from they're saying about 21st of March, but towards the end of March, so not long left before it's in the stores. To summarize, I think both are really good DSLRs. I mean, I think the D7100 clearly has a lot more advantages overall. It's got a lot more of the pro features that you're going to be expecting in more of the full frame ones, full frame DSLRs from Nikon. So that's really useful. But as I mentioned, it's probably worth waiting a little bit, because I mean, it's almost double the price of the Nikon D5200 right now. As I said, undoubtedly the price will come down, so maybe it's worth waiting for. I mean, which one would you go for based on the differences? Do drop me a comment below and let me know. I hope you enjoyed this video and found it useful. If you did, please do hit that thumbs up button. It really does help me out. And why not subscribe to the channel? I've got plenty of videos coming up on here regularly, so do subscribe to the channel. Hit the button right here. This is Saf on Super Saf TV, and I'll see you next time.